Hello everyone, and welcome to my YNR CBS Spoiler Today channel. Please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Lily returns for Chancellor, but Victor says not yet. Lily Winters will make a comeback and hope to conclude her business with Victor Newman, but he'll have other plans. At the Newman ranch, Victor will speak with Lily over the phone and express his happiness over her being back in town. Victor will also hint that they aren't done yet, so he'll summon Lily to the ranch to share some news. Once Lily arrives, she'll acknowledge that the accommodations during her so-called abduction were luxurious. That said, Lily will admit she's glad to be getting back to her own bed and that the twins feel the same way. Lily will be relieved that this is over, but she'll also recall that Victor said they weren't through. A puzzled Lily will ask if Victor got his company back from Kane Ashby and Phyllis Summers and if he's ready to hand over Chancellor to her along with Devon Winters. At the Abbott mansion, Kyle Abbott will struggle to understand how Jack Abbott could do what he did with Patty Williams, but Jack will insist he was drugged and will want revenge on Victor. Although Jack will worry about his marriage, Kyle will give him a pep talk and hope that Diane Jenkins Abbott can forgive him eventually. At the GCAC on Thursday's YNR episode, Patty will run into Diane and gloat about her night with Jack. Since Diane is staying at the athletic club now, Patty will assume it's because of her. Patty will imply that she's going to land back in Jack's bed soon and will deny that any drugging was involved on the yacht. However, Diane will call Patty psychotic and delusional as they face off. Nikki Newman will be horrified at the sight of Patty and will question how she got out of her psychiatric facility. Once Patty saunters off, Nikki and Diane will realize they're both staying at the GCAC due to relationship issues. Nikki will try to figure out what went down, but Diane will snap that Nikki should go ask Jack and bond with him over their broken marriages. After Kyle shows up and tries to put the blame on Victor, he'll hope Diane can forgive Jack with time and space. Diane won't seem certain that she can since time and space won't change what Jack did. Next, Jack will show up at the Newman ranch and admit he doesn't know whether to punch or strangle Victor. Although Victor will initially play dumb, Jack will make it clear that Diane doesn't deserve this and that Victor's going to pay. Victor will tell Jack to bring it on before Jack stomps back to the Abbott house. Nikki will be there with Tracy Abbott as Jack comes home ranting about his confrontation with Victor. That'll lead to Nikki admitting she's no longer living at the ranch. At the Park Cafe, Daniel Romalotti Jr. will flash back to romantic moments with Tessa Porter before deleting a picture of them on his phone. At Crimson Lights, Mariah Copeland will admit to Christine Blair Romalotti and Sharon Newman that Tessa convinced her to accept the plea deal. After Sharon and Christine express relief, they'll hope the judge goes for the plea deal as well. Mariah will get a hug and some reassurance from Tessa before she heads off to the closed chambers meeting. Tessa will speak with Daniel on the patio and let him know that Mariah is on board with the plea deal now. Since Tessa and Mariah have decided to try again, Daniel will share a tender moment with Tessa as they reflect on how they were there for each other. Once the judge accepts the plea deal, Mariah will report back to Tessa and admit she still feels torn about not paying the price. Tessa will insist Mariah isn't a criminal and will plan to support her as she gets mental health treatment. Lily Winters returned to Genoa City with a sense of cautious relief, the kind that came only after surviving something surreal enough to blur the lines between fear and comfort, and as she stepped back into her world, she couldn't shake the lingering tension tied to Victor Newman and his unfinished agenda. Though their phone call had been cordial, even warm on the surface, Lily knew Victor well enough to understand that warmth from him always came with conditions, and when he summoned her to the Newman ranch, she braced herself for whatever revelation he believed would keep her tethered to his orbit, despite her desire to finally close this chapter and reclaim her independence alongside Devon Winters. And when she arrived, she didn't waste time pretending gratitude for the ordeal, candidly acknowledging that while her so-called abduction had been cushioned with luxury, it had still stripped her of control. And now that she was back, all she wanted was her own bed, her own life, and peace for the twins, yet Victor's cryptic reminder that they weren't done hung heavily between them, prompting Lily to question whether he had reclaimed his company from Kane Ashby and Phyllis Summers, and more importantly, whether he intended to honor his implied promise of handing Chancellor over to her in Devon, but Victor, ever the master strategist, revealed just enough to keep her hooked while withholding the full picture, making it clear that any reward would come at a price she had yet to fully understand. And across town at the Abbott mansion, the emotional fallout of Victor's manipulations continued to ripple through the lives of Jack Abbott and Kyle Abbott, as Kyle struggled to reconcile the father he admired with the man who had inexplicably betrayed his marriage by spending a night with Patty Williams. And though Jack insisted he had been drugged and set up, his frustration and humiliation burned into a desire for revenge against Victor, even as he worried about whether Diane Jenkins Abbott would ever be able to forgive him, while Kyle, trying to hold the family together, offered his father reassurance and urged patience, believing that time and space might heal what felt irreparably broken. Yet at the GCAC, the tension escalated when Patty herself appeared, unapologetic and disturbingly gleeful as she taunted Diane with details of her night with Jack, relishing the chaos she had helped unleash, and implying that she intended to reclaim her place in Jack's life, all while denying any wrongdoing and painting Diane as the unstable one, which only fueled Diane's anger as she fired back, calling Patty delusional and refusing to let her rewrite the narrative, until Newman entered the scene, visibly shaken by Patty's presence and demanding to know how she had been released. And as Patty drifted away with unsettling confidence, Nikki and Diane found themselves confronting an uncomfortable truth, that both of their relationships had been fractured in the wake of Victor's schemes. And though Nikki tried to piece together what had happened, Diane lashed out, suggesting Nikki seek answers from Jack and perhaps find common ground in their shared heartbreak, a suggestion that underscored just how deeply Victor's actions had destabilized the lives around him. And when Kyle arrived, he quickly pointed the finger at Victor as the architect of their suffering, urging Diane to give Jack another chance, yet Diane remained unconvinced, her pain too raw to be soothed by logic or time alone. And the confrontation reached a boiling point when Jack himself stormed into the Newman ranch, his fury barely contained as he confronted Victor, admitting he didn't know whether to punch him or strangle him, while Victor feigned innocence just long enough to provoke Jack further, before inviting him to bring it on, a challenge that only deepened Jack's resolve to fight back, though the cost of that fight was already evident in the fractures within his family. And when Jack returned home, still seething, he found Nikki and Tracy Abbott waiting, and Nikki's admission that she was no longer living at the ranch added another layer of upheaval, signaling that even her marriage to Victor was not immune to the fallout, while elsewhere, quieter but equally poignant moments unfolded, as Daniel Romalotti Jr. sat alone at the Park Cafe, reflecting on his past with Tessa Porter, the memories both comforting and painful as he ultimately deleted a photo of them from his phone, a symbolic gesture of letting go even as lingering feelings remained. And at Crimson Lights, Mariah Copeland faced her own crossroads, confiding in Christine Blair Romalotti and Sharon Newman that Tessa had convinced her to accept a plea deal, a decision that brought relief to those who cared about her but left Mariah grappling with complex emotions about accountability and redemption. And as she prepared for the judge's decision, Tessa's unwavering support became her anchor, culminating in a heartfelt embrace before Mariah stepped into the uncertainty of the closed chambers meeting. While outside, Tessa's conversation with Daniel revealed a fragile sense of hope, as she shared that she and Mariah had chosen to try again. And in that moment, Daniel and Tessa found solace in their shared history, acknowledging the ways they had supported each other through difficult times, even as their paths diverged. And when the judge ultimately accepted the plea deal, Mariah returned with mixed emotions, relieved yet conflicted, unsure how to reconcile her desire for justice with the opportunity for healing. But Tessa reassured her that she was not defined by her mistakes and pledged to stand by her as she sought mental health treatment, reinforcing the theme that even amid chaos and manipulation, there remained space for growth, forgiveness, and the possibility of a new beginning. Though as Lily stood at the Newman ranch facing Victor's next move, it was clear that the battle for control of businesses, relationships, and personal destinies was far from over, and every character caught in Victor's web would have to decide just how much they were willing to risk to break free. Lily Winters held her ground in the living room of the Newman ranch, her posture calm but her eyes sharp with suspicion as she studied Victor Newman. knowing that whatever came next would not be a simple business conversation but another carefully orchestrated move in his endless chess game. Victor, standing near the fireplace with that familiar air of quiet dominance, allowed a measured silence to stretch between them, as though he were savoring the moment before revealing just enough truth to pull her deeper into his plans. And when he finally spoke, his voice carried both pride and warning, hinting that while he had indeed regained control over key aspects of his empire, the true victory was not in reclaiming what had been taken by Cain Ashby and Phyllis Summers, but in positioning himself several steps ahead of everyone else, including Lily herself, who quickly realized that whatever promise he had dangled about Chancellor was now tangled in new conditions, unspoken but unmistakably binding, and as she pressed him for clarity, refusing to be manipulated into blind cooperation, Victor pivoted the conversation toward loyalty and legacy, subtly reminding her of the Winters family's stake in the corporate world and how easily it could be strengthened or shattered depending on the alliances she chose to maintain. And though Lily refused to show it, the weight of that implication settled heavily in her chest, forcing her to consider not only her own ambitions but also the future she wanted to secure alongside Devon Winters, who remained both her partner and her moral compass in a world increasingly defined by deception and power plays. And across town at the Abbott mansion, the emotional storm brewing within Jack Abbott showed no signs of easing as he paced restlessly, replaying his confrontation with Victor and the devastating look on Diane Jenkins Abbott's face when she confronted him about his supposed betrayal, the memory gnawing at him with relentless intensity. And despite Kyle Abbott's efforts to reassure him that the truth would eventually prevail, Jack struggled to believe that any explanation could undo the damage already done, particularly with the lingering presence of Patty Williams, whose erratic behavior and unapologetic taunts had turned a private nightmare into a public scandal. And as Jack poured himself a drink, his frustration gave way to a quieter, more dangerous resolve, one that signaled he was no longer content to react to Victor's schemes but was preparing to strike back in a way that would leave no room for ambiguity. While at the Grand Phoenix Athletic Club, Diane sat alone, her composure carefully maintained even as her thoughts spiraled through a maze of anger, betrayal, and doubt. And when Newman joined her, the tension between them was palpable, shaped not only by their shared history but also by the realization that both had been hurt by the same man in different ways. And though Nikki initially approached the conversation with a sense of cautious empathy, it quickly became clear that neither woman was ready to fully lower her defenses, especially as Diane wrestled with the possibility that Jack's insistence on being drugged might be true, a possibility that complicated her anger even as it refused to erase the pain. And Nikki, grappling with her own crumbling marriage, found herself caught between defending Victor out of habit and acknowledging the undeniable pattern of manipulation that had defined so much of their lives. And meanwhile, at Crimson Lights, Mariah Copeland sat with Tessa Porter, the quiet intimacy between them offering a stark contrast to the chaos unfolding elsewhere. And though the judge's acceptance of the plea deal had brought a sense of relief, Mariah couldn't shake the feeling that she had escaped consequences she might have deserved, a guilt that lingered beneath her gratitude and made it difficult to fully embrace the second chance she had been given. Yet Tessa remained steadfast, reminding her that growth and healing were not about punishment but about accountability and change. And as they talked, their renewed commitment to each other began to take on a deeper meaning, one rooted not in perfection but in resilience. While nearby, Daniel Romalotti Jr. watched from a distance, his emotions a complicated mix of nostalgia and acceptance as he observed the bond between Tessa and Mariah, realizing that while his chapter with Tessa had closed, it had not been without purpose, and that the support they had offered each other during difficult times would always remain a part of who they were. And back at the Newman ranch, the conversation between Lily and Victor reached a turning point as Victor finally laid out the contours of his plan, revealing that while Chancellor could indeed be within Lily's grasp, it would require her to take a more active role in his ongoing battle against those who had dared to challenge him, a proposition that immediately raised red flags for Lily, who had no intention of becoming a pawn in Victor's vendettas. And as she challenged him, asserting her independence and refusing to be drawn into his schemes without full transparency, Victor responded with a rare hint of admiration, acknowledging her strength even as he warned that walking away from this opportunity could have consequences she might not be prepared to face. And in that moment, Lily understood that this was not simply a business deal but a test of her resolve. One that would define her position in Genoa City's intricate web of power for years to come. And as she left the ranch, her mind raced with possibilities and risks, knowing that whatever choice she made would ripple through her relationships and ambitions. While at the Abbott mansion, Jack's determination hardened into action as he began to piece together a strategy to expose Victor's manipulation, drawing on both his instincts and the support of those who still believed in him, including Kyle, who stood by his father not out of blind loyalty but out of a conviction that the truth deserved to be fought for. And as night fell over Genoa City, each character found themselves at a crossroads, their paths shaped by the choices they had made and the secrets they carried. With Lily caught between opportunity and autonomy, Jack driven by a need for justice, Diane grappling with trust and betrayal, Nikki questioning the foundation of her marriage, and Mariah and Tessa cautiously embracing a future built on honesty and healing, all of them connected by the unseen threads of Victor's influence, which continued to weave through their lives in ways both subtle and profound, ensuring that even as some wounds began to heal, new conflicts were already taking shape, waiting to erupt in the days to come. And here's where it all gets dangerously quiet, because when Victor Newman starts speaking in half-truths instead of threats, you know something bigger is already in motion. And that silence? It's not peace, it's strategy waiting to strike. Lily thinks she walked back into Genoa City on her own terms, but did she really? Or did Victor just allow her to feel that way? And that's the part that should worry you, because control doesn't always look like control. Sometimes it looks like opportunity. What really stands out here is how everyone is reacting emotionally, but Victor is playing long-term, and in my opinion, that's exactly why he keeps winning, because while others are trying to fix their hearts, he's already rewriting their future. And let's be honest for a second. Lily is strong, smart, and experienced, but even she hesitated, and that hesitation? That's the crack Victor needs, because once doubt enters the room, power quietly changes hands. But here's the deeper question no one is asking. Is Lily fighting for independence, or slowly being pulled back into a system she'll never truly control? And even more importantly, if saying no to Victor comes with consequences, how free is she, really? At the same time, look at the emotional cost spreading everywhere: broken trust, fragile love, guilt, revenge. It's like every character is paying a price, except the one pulling the strings, and that imbalance never lasts forever, does it? Personally, I think we're heading towards something explosive, not just business drama, but a full emotional collapse where alliances flip overnight, and the person who thinks they're safest might be the next one to fall. So now I have to ask you, would you take Victor's deal if it meant risking everything you care about, or walk away and face the unknown consequences? And do you think Lily is strong enough to outplay Victor, or is she already one step behind without realizing it? Because something tells me, the next move won't just change the game, it's going to reveal who was really in control all along, and who never had a choice to begin with. And when that truth comes out, will it be too late to turn back, or just the beginning of something even more dangerous? If you're feeling that tension building, stay close, because the next chapter might answer one question and raise 5 more.